Hi friends. Well, we're here again. I just finished going through all of the different classes and reading all of the different updates and comparing them to the beta rule set for Daggerheart now that we are released. And in this video, I'll be going over all of the changes for all of the classes, including their subclasses. It's probably going to be a big video, and it's not the first time I'm shooting this. I just had about a 20-minute excursion into the video when I realized some stuff wasn't recording properly. So expect a long video. Apologies in advance. I will include timestamps and chapters down below to kind of help skip through so you can find which ones, which class you want to look at and at which time. So with no further ado, let's jump into the changes. Mostly there's buffs and most things are decently and, haven't really been nerfed to the point where I think it's too bad. So no dooming. I'm excited for pretty much all of the changes that are happening here. I think most of them are going to be good. And let's go ahead and get started with Bard. So evasion has been buffed. It was previously 9. It is now 10. Hit points were nerfed, were 6. Now we're down to 5. You're still using Presence as your spellcasting trait. Bard's Hope got an update. Previously, when you or an ally close to you would make a presence roll, and they either succeeded with feelers or whatever, you would spend 3 hopes to negate the roll's consequence by intervening. Now, you can, a new ability, Make a Scene. You can spend 3 hope to temporarily distract a target within close range, giving them a -2 penalty to their difficulty. So, can be used in combat, can be used in conversation. Love this change, actually. I think this is going to make bards pretty good, especially if they're generating a lot of hope. So could be great to see. Looking forward to seeing how some of the bards in my campaigns use this. Rally also got a buff. It's just a wording buff or a technicality buff. It still operates the same. You still rally your allies, giving them a d6. However, they removed the clause that says as your party prepares to enter a dangerous or difficult situation. So now you've got the pretty clear go-ahead to do it whenever. So feel free to throw off a rallying speech in the middle of combat. The rules allow for it, so why not? Moving on to subclasses, Wordsmith got a couple changes to its foundations here. Rousing Speech, it got changed. It used to be conditional upon any allies that could hear it. Now it just applies to all allies within far range. Still clearing 2 stress, so GM rule probably going to have to be whether it makes sense or not, because it is a verbal speech, but up to you guys to kind of handle as you need. Heart of a Poet also got a little bit of a buff too. It used to be, it now can be used after the roll instead of before the action was made. So typically you had to use it before you did your thing. Now you can do it afterwards. So nice little bit of timing update there. Should make Bard a little bit more smooth and maybe feel less clunky. I know that I've had a couple complaints that Bard just felt weird to play. As far as specialization and mastery for Wordsmith, no changes there, and Troubadour had no changes across the board. Everything is still the same with that one. Jumping over to Druid, we've got some buffs here. Evasion is up, was 8, now base evasion is 10. Hit points are still 6, and we are still using Instinct as our spellcasting trait. Druid's Hope got a buff. Previously, you could spend 3 hope while in beast form to increase your damage thresholds. That was very strong, don't get me wrong. But it has been changed now to evolution, and you can spend 3 hope to transform into beast form without having to mark a stress. And when you do, you can raise, you get a +1 to the trait until you drop out of the beast form. So a nice stress-free way of getting into beast form, which could be useful given they also buffed how beast form kind of interacts. So generally across the board, I'll jump down to the class features here. Wild Touch has no change, that's the same, but Beast Form was buffed in the way that it now is less restrictive in like how you lose Beast Form. So previously, if you mark your last hit point or your last stress, your Beast Form automatically drops out. That's been changed. They got rid of the stress conditioner, so now it's if you're forcibly shift out, if you mark your last hit point, you're forcibly shifted out of form. But you can keep your stress and everything like that. So I think generally it's gonna be good change. As far as Warden of the Elements goes, Elemental Incarnation lost the verbiage clarifying specifically if it could overlap with Beast Form. So it's interesting that they took that away. I think that it generally makes sense from a narrative standpoint if you're speccing into Warden of the Elements and you're a druid, that you would just be able to use both of them. It would just make sense that way. But it could be up to the GM now. I think it generally makes sense that you would just be able to add that, elemental incarnation to whatever beast form you have. Narratively, it's really cool. Earth is the only element that got an update here. Previously, you'd gain a bonus to your armor score. Now you gain bonus to your damage thresholds equal to your proficiency, which is like a crazy buff for the first level of this. Really strong. Can add pretty high damage threshold buff. So great to see that. Specialization. Earth also got changed. It gave your allies an armor score in the past. Now it gives all of your allies +1 to their strength score. And then for mastery, it was a little tricky, and it's been kind of simplified. Instead of armor, it now works on hit points. But in the past, whenever you'd mark an armor slot, you'd roll d6, yada yada. Now, with the updated version, whenever you would mark hit points, you roll a d6 for each hit point that you are supposed to be marking. Each time you get a 6, you just don't mark that hit point. So really simple. It should be a little bit more clear and easier to resolve for new players and everything like that. So good to see that. Jumping down to Warden of Renewal. Warden's Protection got an update, which I think this one's going to be a good. Buff as well. Previously, it would kind of repair armor slots to your nearby allies, like one ally. Now, it is kind of a AoE heal almost. Once per long rest, you can spend 2 hope to clear 2 hit points on 1d4 allies within close range. So, could be a very powerful AoE heal, especially for just in between long rests. So, happy to see that. They got some more toolkits to kind of play around with. As far as beast form changes, Tier 1, pretty much all the same. Across the board, I went through all the different changes, through all the different forms and everything. The only one I noticed was with Stalking Arachnid. They changed the verbiage from envenomated to poisoned. So now you don't envenom the target, now you just poison them. End result still is the same though. They're still taking 1d10 physical direct damage each time they act. It's a temporary buff, can be removed. Tier 2, Striking Serpent, same deal. Envenom was changed to poison. However, Striking Serpent did gain a new ability called Warning Hiss, where you can mark a stress to force any number of targets within melee range to move back one range set, so move back from melee to very close. Winged Beast also got a buff. Previously, the bird's eye view trait feature that it had required you to make like this awkward roll, and then if you succeeded the roll, you could ask a GM a question. They got rid of that, so you can fly at will, and once per rest, while you're airborne, you can ask the GM freely a question about the scene below without needing that roll. Definitely a good change. And then the first time your character makes a roll to like act upon this information, you get an advantage on the roll. Tier 3, everything looks pretty much the same, with a couple notes here. Great Winged Beast, the feature for Bird's Eye View, got the same update, so just keep that in mind. Legendary Hybrids, rest in peace. They kind of got giga nerfed. It still exists, and it's still going to be useful and certainly very powerful, but nowhere where it was in beta. For hybrid features, you can transform into the creature. It costs an additional stress now, and then you choose 2 beast form options from the lower tiers, so tier 1 and 2, and then you choose a total of 4 advantages and 2 features. Previously, it was, all the tiers, you get all the advantages and all the features. It was really, really strong. That's gone now, so, you know, if you played with it, hope you had fun. On to Tier 4. Epic Aquatic Beasts got a pretty decent buff. Their Unyielding feature, whenever you would mark an armor slot, you roll a d6, and on a result of 5 or higher, you reduce the severity by 1 threshold without marking the armor slot. So it's, you know, it got adjusted now. Previously, the wording was a little weird, but now you just, if you get a 5 or a 6, you don't have to mark an armor slot, and you get to reduce the threshold. So, going to be a very strong ability. Mythic Hybrid, also, I'm sorry, it got nerfed, and honestly, the step up here to Tier 4, it's not that much better. It costs an additional stress, so it's now 2 additional stress to transform. You can choose from any of the beast forms for tiers 1 and 3. And then you get 5 total advantages and 3 features to choose from. So the hybrids, again, this one was kind of like you had the whole suite and you just had these like crazy amalgamations. We're not going to have those anymore, so they'll still be strong, but not as strong as they used to be. Jumping over to Guardian changes, evasion got buffed. It was at 8, now it's at 9, and hit points also got buffed. They were at 6 base, now they're at 7. Guardian's Hope got changed, to be expected. Instead, it used to be 3 Hope for 3 armor slots. Now it's 3 Hope for 2 armor slots. I think this is still going to be a very powerful Hope feature. Certainly with the way that, you know, damage thresholds work now, I think you'll probably get a significant amount out of this one. And then Unstoppable. Base functionality is the same, but when it comes to bonuses, while Unstoppable, those have changed. Previously, you gained resistance to physical damage and increased your current armor score by your proficiency. Both of those bullet points have been kind of condensed. Now you just reduce the severity of physical damage by 1 threshold. So it's just a automatic apply an armor slot pretty much to any damage coming through. Even that, maybe making it too complicated. Whenever you get hit by physical damage, you just reduce the threshold by 1. The adding the damage die, or adding the unstoppable die to your damage is the same, and you still have resistance against being restrained or vulnerable, so those are still the same. As far as subclasses go, Stalwart, still at like each level of like initial specialization and mastery, you're still getting those bonuses to your damage thresholds of like 1, 2, and 3. So that hasn't changed, but they did change the passive now. Previously, when you took physical damage, you would just always reduce it by your armor score, which made some like unholy tanky characters. Now that's been changed, reasonably nerfed. Iron Will, whenever you take physical damage, you can mark an additional armor slot to reduce the severity. So with the change to armor slots, there's across the board, you can only mark 1 armor slot and it reduces the severity. Stalwarts will be able to mark an extra, mark 2 armor slots to knock it down by 2 severity thresholds. So in terms of like overall damage, I think it still will, on like an individual level, be more damage reduction, but it's not the insane level of just absurd tankiness at like a passive no cost to the player. So the Guardian Stalwarts will still be really, really tanky and hard to kill, but they're going to have to like rely on their hope a little bit more to kind of keep refreshing armor slots. Because I mean, this thing basically says like 2 armors, 3 hope, and like you don't take damage almost. Going down to specialization, the only change here was when a very close ally takes damage, you can mark an armor slot to reduce the damage that they're taking by your armor score. It's just been changed to be more simple. Partner in arms, when an ally within very close range takes damage, you can mark an armor slot to reduce the severity by 1. You know, really good. Should be nice. As far as Vengeance goes, as the other subclass, when you take this foundation, you used to get an armor slot in the beta version. That has been changed 1 for 1. You just get an additional stress slot now. And then like the retaliation mechanic has been changed and simplified. Previously, when you got hit by an enemy in melee range, immediately you would roll a number of d6 equal to the hit points, and then 5+. It was a little confusing. Now it's simple. when an adversary within melee range succeeds an attack on you, you can mark 2 stress and force the attacker to mark a hit point. This will be way more consistent, and especially on enemies that have really high thresholds. This is going to be a very, very powerful passive. And it's not even keywords here. It's when an adversary within melee range succeeds an attack on you, not necessarily does damage to you, just succeeds the attack. So you might ultimately take no damage from the attack. They just have to succeed it in order for you to get this retaliation. So powerful, love it. Jumping over to Rangers, evasion was buffed. It was 10, now it's 12. Hit points are still at 6. Spellcasting trait still agility. Ranger's Hope got an interesting buff. I think in the long term this will be more fun to play with and a little less cheesy. Previously you could spend 3 hope to increase your evasion by 3 until your next short rest. There were ways to kind of infinite stack this. That's gone now, so we don't have to worry about infinitely stacking like evasion buffs anymore. But it's been changed totally to hold them off, and now you can spend 3 hope, and when you succeed an attack with a weapon, you can use that same roll against 2 additional adversaries within range of the attack. So, a triple shot or a multi-shot for 3 hope. Pretty cool AoE damage for Rangers. No change to Ranger's focus. That's the same. We'll skip to Wayfinder real quickly. No changes. Everything's the same. Good to deal there. And now we get to Beastbound. There are some level up changes, which I'll show on screen. I think that's probably the easiest way to just show you the difference between beta and live without reading out everything specifically. But previously, it was kind of unclear as to why you would take Beastbound. In the beta version, how you interacted with your pet was nebulous and unclear at best. And the reason for that is because how you kind of initiated them and got them to make an attack with the action tracker, it kind of felt like you were wasting your turn because the pet doesn't deal as much damage as you in most cases. And then you would make a roll with your pet, and then maybe the pet would succeed, but then it would deal less damage, so why wouldn't you just attack with your bow? It's been changed and clarified a little bit. You now make a spellcast roll to activate your pet. You can then spend a hope to add to their experience, to add one of their experiences to the attack, and then if they're successful with hope, your next action that would build on their success, you take advantage on that action. Not gonna lie, across like all the changes, I think this is the change that I'm personally like the most disappointed in. It just feels really, really clunky. The example that I was kind of saying with this is, it's like, okay, you're Beastbound, you want to use your pet, and you want to like make good use of your pet. Okay, is it 5 o'clock on Tuesday with a sunny sky? Yes? Okay, you have a buff. There's so many conditionals that we have to add to make use of your pet. You're making a spellcast roll, so right off the rip, that could fail or that could pass or fail. Then you have to spend a hope. Then, if they're successful with hope, you then have to take your next action, and that next action is constrained by, is it building on their success in order for you to capitalize on the other 3 things, and you do all of that for just an additional d6. It seems wildly complicated for the purpose of just how do we include a pet into your attack as like your whole subclass. So very complicated. I don't think it was very well thought out. I'm sorry guys, everything else was cool, but this one I'm disappointed in. Just when you're kind of going in, and I'll kind of explain a little bit more here. With the way that it's set up, the pet is well positioned, especially if you take the Beastbound subclass, and then at level 4 you immediately, or at level 5 when you subclass, immediately subclass out into a different class. You could effectively build this like really, really tanky frontline character in this pet now soaks damage, because whenever the pet takes damage, it just marks a stress. No thresholds, it's just one stress no matter the damage. So it can take unreal hits, one stress. And then you can pretty easily clear stress through a variety of different means. So you could have this pet that just can tank damage like nobody's business. That was like a good use of it, but that didn't really seem fun, and narratively was kind of boring and weird. So here's my solution. I don't like to bitch and complain unless I offer a solution, because I feel like it's kind of a waste of time. So my solution that I made, and this is what we use in my home brews for any of my Beastbound players, but with your pet, you can spend 2 hope to initiate essentially like a mini tag team with them. There's no timing restrictions, so it's not like once per short rest or anything like that. Whenever you want to coordinate with your pet, it's 2 hope. You do a mini tag team, and you can just add their damage dice. You have to tell me as the GM before you make the attack whether your pet is going to assist you with the attack roll or assist you with the damage roll. And then you spend your hope, and it adds to the attack or adds to the damage roll. And that's it. That's as far as it goes. Narratively, it's more fun. It gets you kind of involved in thinking how you're going to get your pet to kind of play along, and then it also incentivizes the player to kind of spec into damage a little bit more, as opposed to just going full into stress and then figuring out ways to kind of mitigate the stress. Anyway, rant over. Let me know in the comments. I'd love to know kind of if you have homebrew rules for Beastbounds. Maybe there's something that, you know, I haven't thought about that's a good way to kind of include them or make them more interesting to play. But for me, this update really wasn't it. But anyway, let's move forward. Let's press on. We're about halfway there, and we're 21 minutes in. Oh god. Okay. All right. Rogue class. We're gonna make it through, guys, together, I believe. The rogue class changes. Evasion got a buff. Was 11, now is 12. Hit points still at 6. Spellcasting trait is still finesse. As far as Rogue's Hope, this one got changed a little bit. Whether this will be a buff or a nerf, we'll just have to kind of see through testing. But previously, you could spend 3 hope to increase your sneak attack damage until short rest. You would add 2 extra d6s. Now that has changed to Rogue's Dodge. You spend 3 hope to gain +2 bonus to your evasion until the next time an attack succeeds against you. So this isn't going to be able to be stacked, kind of like it was with the Ranger buff, where you could stack it. Otherwise, the bonus lasts until your next long rest. But it is a decent, like, spend 3 hope. I don't know why you wouldn't just spend 3 hope to just have a +2 bonus always on the Rogue. So we'll see how this one kind of rolls out. Maybe it'll get patched at some point or fixed. Don't know, but we'll see. As far as class features go, a little bit of verbiage change. Hide has now been changed to Cloaked. Effectively works the same way, though. Anytime you would be hidden, you're instead Cloaked. In addition to the benefits of the Hidden Edition, while Cloaked, you remain unseen if you are stationary when an adversary moves to where they would normally see you. And then after you make an attack or end a move within line of sight of an adversary, you're no longer cloaked. And benefits of being cloaked would be with like the new sneak attack. When you succeed on an attack roll while cloaked, or while an ally is within melee range of your target, you can add a number of d6 equal to your tier to the damage roll. So that is actually a huge buff that definitely is important. Previously, it was a hope dump where you would, spend hope and then add d6. Now it's just a passive buff, so I think rogues are going to feel way stronger with this, and sneak attacks certainly are going to be very, very powerful, which is nice. I think most rogue players, they enjoy a good sneak attack. As far as Nightwalker, really the only changes here are just kind of naming and verbiage changes. Hidden was changed to Cloak, otherwise that's all the same. Cloaked was renamed to Vanishing Act, and Syndicate had no changes there, so Rogue's relatively the same, bar a pretty decent buff to sneak attack. It's not going to be, I guess it's d6s, so could be good. You're not going to be able to do massive dumps with all of your hope, but generally I think it's going to be a more consistent flat damage buff. So good stuff to see there. Jumping over to Seraph now. Evasion got a buff. It was 7, now is 9. Hit points also got buffed by 1. You're still using Strength as your spellcasting trait. Seraph's Hope was changed. This one, I think, the only change is if you really liked using Prayer Dice. I'm sorry, you're losing your consistent supply of Prayer Dice here. But it has been updated. Now it is life support. You can spend 3 hope to clear a hit point on any ally within close range. So it's a 3 hope for a 1 HP close range heal, which is pretty strong, considering the other healing options, especially available for, just an instant guaranteed heal at any time. But you do kind of lose the ability to refresh your prayer dice. But if you didn't use them, and the prayer dice themselves haven't been changed, so if you didn't really use them as much as a Seraph, I guess no hard feelings. Everything's the same, and you got a nice heal now. Jumping into Winged Sentinel, only real change here is just they swapped the costs. For Wings of Flight, you can now fly, and while you're flying, if you want to pick somebody up, it costs a stress now, and if you want to deal extra damage on a successful attack, it costs a hope. I like this change a lot also. I think this is a very good hope dump. Other than that, specialization and mastery have not changed. Divine Wielder mostly hasn't changed until we get down to the mastery of the Divine Wielder, and this has been simplified significantly, and I think, in my opinion, probably buffed too. If you run the numbers, this will be a more powerful effect. Basically, Sacred Resonance, your new ability, when you roll damage for your spirit weapon feature, if any of the dice results match, you just double the dice of each matching die. So the example here, you roll a couple 5s, they match, now they're 10s. So this could be a really nice bonus to your spirit weapon. It should be good to see there. Way less complicated than it was in the past, so love the trend. Hopping over to Sorcerer, Evasion was buffed, was at 9, now is at 10. They still have 6 HP points, which, quick note, is strange that they have still 6 HP points. I would have imagined that Sorcs would be down to 5, because the squishier classes typically all got knocked down to 5, but nope, not Sorcs, they stay at 6. Still using Instinct. Sorcerer's Hope now has been changed as well. This one seems like a good change. Previously, you could spend 3 Hope after a spellcast roll to double the result of your Hope die. Now it becomes Volatile Magic. You can spend 3 Hope to reroll any number of damage dice on an attack that deal magic damage. So, maybe not. Maybe it's not a good change, maybe it is a good change. I don't know. Sorc players, you guys will have to tell me what you're feeling in the comments below. Class feature, Channel Raw Power. No changes to the ability itself. However, there was a line removed, which was after you sent a card to the vault, the verbiage was cut about being able to, during your next rest, return it to your hand without paying its recall cost. So the fact that they intentionally took that out leads me to believe that you're going to have to deal with that problem, quote unquote, deal with it when you get to your short rest or to your next rest. Going through subclasses, Primal Origin, Manipulate Magic only had one change. The line where it was rerolling any number of damage dice has been changed to double a damage dice of your choice. So a little bit of a change there. Should kind of speed things up a little bit. I think you can just pick which dice you're going to double, and it is a single die as opposed to multiple. Specialization didn't change. Mastery, the damage for Arcane Charge was simplified. Previously, you would be adding your spell's damage proficiency by +1. Now you're just adding 10 bonus damage, so pretty decent. Don't have to roll extra dice for that one. It's just a flat 10. And then Elemental Origins. Transcendence was updated. That's the only change, and they just removed the +2 to your armor score option. So everything else there is the same. All right, jumping over to Warrior. All right, so for Warrior changes, evasion was buffed. It was 10, now is 11. Hit points are still at 6. Warrior's Hope feature has been changed a little bit. Previously, you could spend 3 hope to reroll any number of your damage dice on an attack. Now you can spend 3 hope to gain a +1 bonus on your attack rolls, so maybe more consistently landing the damage. You'll have to let me know how that one feels. As for your class feature, Attack of Opportunity got updated as well. This is definitely a buff in my opinion. Previously, it forced you to make an agility reaction roll against their difficulty. Now you can pick. You make a reaction roll using a trait of your choice against their difficulty. So a little bit more flexibility, could be a little bit nicer. As far as changes here, not too many to the subclasses. Call the Slayer is pretty much the same until you get down to the Mastery. This one is, I think, this one's technically a nerf if you were using it, how it was specifically worded. Previously, in order to use martial preparation, during a rest, you would select it, describe how you instruct and train your party, then you give everybody a Slayer die. Now you can still do that. You use this move, describe how you instruct and train your party. However, you and each ally who chooses this downtime move gains a d6 Slayer die. So now all of your allies have to specifically join the training. They can't just passively receive it. Outside of that, no other changes to Call the Brave. And we are in the home stretch here with Wizard. Evasion was not 1, it was 10, and it is now 11. So that's been buffed a little bit. And then hit points, they were 6, now they're 5. And spellcasting trait is still Knowledge. As for Wizard's Hope, that also has been changed. Previously, you would spend 3 hope instead of marking your last hit point. Now you can get, you have the ability called Not This Time, where you spend 3 hope to force an adversary within far range to re-roll an attack or a damage roll. This is a very, very powerful ability, and definitely will get some use. Being able to re-roll or forcibly re-roll an adversary's crit will absolutely save your party's lives sometimes, for sure. As far as class feature, no change there. School of Knowledge, a lot of text here, but for the most part, everything's relatively the same. Experience stuff in each of the sections is pretty much gone. Now you get more domain cards, more tools and things to play with. So previously, you get this like extra knowledge. You gain advantage on knowledge rolls to kind of recall information and yada yada. That's been changed now to just take an additional domain card of your level or lower from your domain to have access to. Specialization. This one also got changed. Whenever you spec into School of Knowledge, you can change an existing experience. That's gone. Now you just take an additional domain card at your level or lower. And for Mastery, wouldn't you believe it? Instead of the Mastery, where you choose 2 new experiences and add +1 to them, you take an additional domain card at your level or lower from your domain that you have access to. So, School of Knowledge wizards will have all kinds of tools in their kit to play with. School of War, just some minor updates here. Originally, you would gain an extra armor slot. That has been 1-for-1 with HP, so now you gain an extra HP slot. Specialization, you can concentrate to maintain a protective barrier while you have at least 2 hope. You can add your spellcast trait to your evasion. Now it is Conjure Shield. You maintain a protective barrier of magic while you have at least 2 hope. Add your proficiency to your evasion. So, could be decent, could be, slight buff, I think, in the way that proficiency and spellcasting trait may be leveled out. But we'll have to see. I think you might end up being somewhere in the range of buff more than in the range of nerf. And then Mastery, when you succeed on an attack roll with hope, you can choose to make it with fear instead. This one is gone. Now you have Thriving Chaos, and when you succeed on an attack, you can mark a stress after rolling damage to force the target to mark an additional HP point. That's very good. Maybe you won't get the crazy fear bonus damage, but it lets you not pass the turn back to the GM, which I'm sure people who are playing with School of War wizards will appreciate. And you just get to mark an extra hit point, so you guarantee that you've passed that next threshold. And with that, we have made it through the classes, and I thank you so much for sticking with me and hanging out as I went through and ran through all of the classes. It took me a lot longer than I anticipated to one for one, line by line, go through every class and compare them against their beta versions, but hopefully you found the video helpful. If you did, I would appreciate a like, share, and subscribe. I will be going through all of the other changes that have kind of happened through the beta to live, so stay tuned for the next video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy.